Hi, everybody. I'm James, and welcome back to Storytime with James. Make sure you like, subscribe, and leave me a comment if you like. Lemonade. Okay, this one's called That's Cold, Man. Yeah, yeah. Look, this was this was in December around 1991. 1990 or 91. It was one of the two. Well, I was in the house with my daughter who was 3 years old at the time. She was 3 years old. And I ended up had to watch her because her mom was going to work. And we were in Harvey, Illinois. So she had to go to work in the city of Chicago. So I remember calling to this place where I used to work at. It was called A&R. So I was calling A&R over and over. And then they finally told me, they said, okay, come down and get your check. I said, oh, okay, okay. But I wasn't thinking that I had to go all the way to 22nd and Cermak. You know, I was on 151st Street. That's where I stayed, at the time. 151st in Paulina. So, so I said, well, so my daughter, she said, can I go? Can I go? I said, yeah, you got to go. I had tried to call my sister and everybody to keep her, but they could. I couldn't get in touch with nobody. So I said I just take her with me. But then and my car wouldn't start. You know, so I went out to start the car and it wouldn't start. But so I said, well, just gotta catch a bus. I catch the bus and the train. To get there. So while I was getting ready to get us dressed, I looked out the front door, opened the front door, and boy, it was like 10 below 0, 10 below. So I'm like, well, I just dress. We just dress, for the occasion. So I got my daughter dressed, and I got dressed, and we set out to go to A&R, the office, to get my check. My paycheck. Matter of fact, it was my last check from there. So we set out. We went out, got on the bus. I think we got on the bus at Wood Street. So we got on Wood Street, took the bus down to 147th, and then we waited on the next bus. So it was kind of nippy outside then, but this is Chicago, so you expect it to get that cold. So that kind of cold didn't bother me. So we caught the bus uh to the to oh man, okay, 100 and yeah, 147th. We caught the bus on down. We caught another bus and went down to 95th. And 95th is the main bus terminal. So at 95th we got off and got on the train, and we rode down to 22nd Street. So when we got down to 22nd Street, they took a long time to issue me my check, because I wasn't gonna come that far without something in my hands. So I told them, I said, hey, I'm not going nowhere until y'all give me my money. They said, okay, we're gonna give we got a lot of people in here, and it was true enough. It was a lot of employees in there waiting for their checks. Something was back their checks up. I think they had a problem with printers or something like that. So me and my daughter waited in there, sat and waited. We waited for like 2 hours, you know. Then we finally got up there, and I was able to sign for my check, and they gave me my check. Now, when they gave me my check, see, this is where I failed. I failed to check the weather. You know, I failed to check the weather. You know, so when we got outside, we got on the street. Now we on 22nd and Cermak. Now you know it's going to be colder there because that's colder to closer to the lakefront. That's closer to the lake. So man, I'm telling you, it had dipped to 40 below. Now it was freezing, and my daughter, you know, her face was kind of exposed. You know, she had a hood on, you know, like here, but her face was freezing. And man, I touched her face; it was frozen. You know, and she didn't complain about it. She didn't complain about it. So we got on the bus stop. We're sitting there on a bus bench, a bench that you sit on, and I stood her up on the bench, and I said, I was shivering myself. I was shivering, and she said, "Daddy, I'm cold." Man, that was terrible. That was terrible. So I opened my coat up and I put her inside. I had this big this long coat on. It comes down to my almost to my ankles, you know. It was a cashmere coat, you know. So I opened it up and I put her inside of it. And she got warm from my body, you know. And I buttoned the buttons up on the front and just closed her in there. And she went to sleep. She ended up going to sleep. So then I had to hold her up like this, and we standing there, and I was so freezing. My ears were froze. I didn't even have earmuffs on. So we standing out there, standing out there, standing out there, standing out there, and then a bus finally came. We got on there. By then, everything was froze. My nose. If your nose would have ran a little bit, it would freeze. Any tears that came out your eyes, they froze where they were. So, man, it was terrible. So we got on the bus and rode, and I was sitting there, and I can take her out the coat then, you know, I unbuttoned it, and she was in there asleep, and I said, oh man, I said, man, I'll never do this again, you know. So then I ended up riding the bus, and then I ended up dozing off, and we went past our stop. We was almost out in Country Club Hills, so it was terrible. Now it's got colder. It was now about 50 something below zero. So man, then we had to come back, turn around, come back, and when we came back, we had to catch a bus this way, catch a bus that, and then get to Wood Street and catch a bus down Woods, and then we had like a one, two. We had a 2.5 block walk, you know. Man, it was freezing, and I started walking. I had put her inside of my coat, and I just walked with her. I almost fell a couple of times too, because there was a lot of ice out there. Walk, and lo and behold, we finally made it to the doorstep. And my hands, I could not even feel my hands because I had gloves on, but they wasn't thick gloves. They were, you know, so I couldn't feel I put my hand in my pocket. I couldn't even distinguish which was my keys and what was money and what was what, you know. So I got the key out and put the key in the door, and I burst in there. Oh my goodness. Man, that was terrible, man. That was a terrible day. A real terrible day. Especially when my daughter looked up at me and said she's cold, you know. So, man, I remember that right there, and I never did that again, you know. So, and don't none of y'all do that either. If there is this extreme temperatures out, if it's too hot or if it's too cold, especially because you could die out there and nobody would care. Nobody would stop to drop you off or anything like that. Nobody would ask you, "Hey, what's wrong? What's you okay? You okay?" You know. So nobody's gonna help you. So you got to protect yourself. Now, if you got to go out in extreme temperatures, go out by yourself. You know, try to find somebody. But I couldn't find, in my case, I couldn't find anybody. You know, so all right, man. It's cold. All right. Make sure you like, subscribe, and leave me a comment if you like. And hit that bell notification. Hit that bell notification so that you know every time I drop another video. And share, share, share. Share my videos with your family. Share my videos with your friends. Share them with your loved ones. And even share it with your enemies. Peace. Adios. Salamat.